Alright guys, it's Matt Doc here once again, and on this video we'll be talking about temperature scale and conversion of temperature scale. This is another session on it, right? Please do not forget to like, subscribe and share. Of course, like, make sure you try to share the video. You might definitely see someone who is definitely in need of this topic. So let us move on to the scale of reference. Now, here we're talking about temperature scales. And when we talk about temperature scales is just more or less like you're talking about how things are graduated. Now, all these scales that I've put in here, the Kelvin scale, the degrees Celsius scale, and the Fahrenheit scale, are all scales in which thermometers are graduated, right? And when we say the scale in which thermometers are graduated, what did I mean by that? What I mean by that is, let's assume in a case here, in a case like this, come in. Now, in this case right here, I have three set of ruler. This is a ruler, and this is another ruler, and this is another ruler. You will notice that ruler are definitely used to measure length, right? And of course, let's draw ourselves a length here. Now, I have drawn myself a particular line from point A to point B. If I am to use this ruler to measure this line from point A to point B, if I obtain 2.5, if I obtain 2.5 meter, if I obtain 2.5 meter, if I'm using the millimeter thermometer to definitely check the length of this line, it is not going to be 2.5 meter. And if I'm using the centimeter ruler to check the length of this ruler, it is not going to be 2.5. Now, these are all ruler, but they have different graduation. Or should I say, scale. That is, the scale at which they are being graduated is different from each other. Now, this is the same thing that is definitely happening, right, at the temperature scale. Now, these are all thermometers. Well, we can say these are three different types of thermometer, right? There are three different types of thermometer with three different types of scale. And they might also be the same set of thermometer, but with different scales, right? So you'll notice that this is a thermometer, right? It's a thermometer. It's a mercury in glass thermometer, but the scale, right, is graduated in Kelvin. This is also a mercury in glass thermometer, but the scale is graduated in Celsius. And this is also a mercury in glass thermometer, but the scale in this case is graduated in Fahrenheit. So if I use just three thermometer, right, to measure the same amount of temperature, their reading is not going to be the same. Just like in the case of the ruler, if I measure the length of this line AB, right, and line AB in meter is 2.5 meter, in centimeter it is going to be 250 centimeter. If I use the centimeter ruler to measure this, it's going to be 250 centimeter. And of course, that comes from the principle, right, that 100 centimeter is equal to 1 meter. And since 100 centimeter is equivalent to 1 meter, if you have 2.5 meter, that will be equivalent to x. And if you cross multiply in that case, you will notice that will give you 250 centimeter. You see that, right? So in this case right now, right, we might definitely come to, right, an agreement that when we measure it with a meter ruler, we obtain 2.5. When we measure with a centimeter ruler, we obtain 250. If I measure with my millimeter ruler, it is going to be because of course you know that 1 centimeter equal to 10 millimeter. So that will be 250 multiplied by 10. That will be 2500 millimeter. Did you see that? So the same length is measured, but we obtain our answer in 3 different units. And because the units at which the ruler are graduated is different, we obtain 3 different answers. Right? So the scale actually helps us to obtain the value in different units. The unit could be higher, or in some other cases, the unit can also be lower. Right? So the units could be higher, or the units could definitely be lower. In this case, right, we definitely have to understand that when we are talking about temperature scale, we're talking about the units, right, at which, right, we obtain our value. For instance, in this thermometer, values are going to be obtained in Kelvin. On this thermometer, values are going to be obtained in degrees centigrade, vice versa, right? Of course, the graduation of this thermometer is in Kelvin, and the graduation of this thermometer is in Celsius. So because they are 2 different thermometers, we expect the reading to be a little bit different from each other, if not completely different from each other. Even though they are the same thermometer, if they are used to measure the same temperature, the value obtained in this case will be bigger, and the value obtained in this case will be smaller. We are going to look at this shortly. Let us get this off the way. Let's get this off the way. Let's get this off the way. Now, looking at this together, right, we can now talk about how this graduation is done in this case, right? Now, at this lower side of our temperature scale is what we call the lower fixed point. I'm going to be given that LF. And LF is referred to as the lower fixed point. We call that the lower fixed point. We call that the lower fixed point. Now, you can also call it other names. The other name you can call it is absolute zero. You can call it absolute zero. You can call it ice point. Those are other names you can call LF. And the upper part of this scale is called, right, UF. And we call that the upper fixed point. We call it the upper fixed point. We call it the upper fixed point. Now you can also call it other names like the boiling point, or the steam point. So I can call it any of those 2 names in some other references. Do not forget, the upper part of the temperature scale, the upper part, are referred to upper fixed point, and the lower part are referred to as the lower fixed point. UF, LF. Now in this case, for our Kelvin scale,